Hey everyone, it's Christopher Swan, and welcome to this week's episode of Living Your Journey. Each week, I have this amazing opportunity to chat with people that love what they do in life. They understand their passions and their direction. Maybe it's a career path, or it's the social impact that they're making. It's kind of like they're following their North Star. They know their story may change, but they understand that they're on a journey every day. Comedian, storyteller, and all-around funny woman, Jen Kober is on the show this week. Jen seems to be everywhere these days. She's been touring her stand-up comedy show across the U.S. She could be seen appearing in various TV shows like ABC's The Middle, making her way into podcasts, and can even be seen as part of NPR's Snap Judgement tour. We talk about her life in comedy, getting started, growing her work, and everything in between. Jen also talks about her future plans, writing 2 pilots and a movie treatment, and how she measures success. Okay, admittedly, we have a good time chatting because we get a little carried away in our chat about how to get away with murder, children's music, and even a sidestep into the election. But Jen's like that, someone you want to talk with. And well, I love a fun conversation. Our conversation is full of stories, ideas, advice, and good times. Everyone, here's Jen. Jen Kober, it is so great to have you on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Good. I am too. So I'm going to just jump right in. So listen, you know this, I told you this, I've seen you before, I've seen you perform, I've seen you, and actually that's when I realized, oh, you were in the middle and you were on these shows. So of course you're hilarious. Anyone who's seen you knows it. But something I've been realizing lately too is you're kind of this master storyteller and performer, because you're not just a comedian, I think you're so much more. So I've really enjoyed you cross like all these mediums, and lately I think you're kind of on a roll. So I'm going to jump in kind of like with like the big question of, why do you do what you do? Like, why comedian? Why be a performer?
Honestly, this is the only skill I have ever had. When I was young, my mother, I had a mom that loved for me to stay out of her hair. So in order to do that, I would make up my own little worlds. And so by the time, people started actually paying attention to me, I had created entire fantasies. I remember telling people when I was in like first or second grade that I had a sister in Venezuela, and I was, going to Paris over Christmas, and that my little sister had a magic powers. And just ridiculous things that in my head, everyone was believing because I was a genius. But of course, everyone was like, this little kid just lies a lot. And so, I was very lucky that I had some teachers and mentors and friends and such that along the way really pointed me in the direction of a place where I could put all that energy into something that was positive, which is things like, public speaking. I did speech in high school and debate, things like that, where I could, put all of this creative energy. I got into a lot of writing programs and things like that as a kid. So I was lucky that those sort of deviant skills got put into something positive that I could actually use.
That's amazing. How did that transition then from even like public speaking, when you said that, almost surprised me a little bit. I can understand it, but how did that translate into, like I can help people laugh, or I'm good at this?
Well, in the small town where I grew up, Lake Charles, Louisiana, there just wasn't a lot of culture. And so when they saw that I was funny, they were like, oh, you should get into speech. And I did humorous interpretation where I got to literally play all of the people, right? You're just one person doing this excerpt from a play. So I did an excerpt where I played like 18 different people and, in 10 minutes. And it was when I literally just came across the DVD the other day and I watched it and I was like, this is insane that I could do this. This really is a skill that I have kind of let go by the wayside. I should pick this back up again. But it was a lot of accents and voices and physicalizations and things of different people. And it was the only place where I could do that, really. It was the only outlet for that. There wasn't really a theater, even a community theater program when I was that age. So I did it in high school, and because I got that instant gratification from it, that's what I love about being funny is, if you're doing it well or not, because either people are laughing or not. When you're being dramatic, you don't know. Like, are people getting this? Is this reaching them? Who knows? They could just be sitting there in their chair thinking this really blows chunks. But when it's comedy, if they're not laughing, that's your indicator. If they are laughing, then that's your indicator as well. So I always was funny. I mean, I was very lucky that right off the bat, my instincts were right on about it. I have great timing. And even as a high schooler, I won nationals like 3 times when I was in high school because it was all I did. It was literally my job at that age. And I was traveling every weekend. It was very much like doing stand-up, which is why I think this lifestyle just kind of rolls off of me so easily, is because I've been doing it for so long. Literally, I'd be 14, 15 years old and going to a speech tournament in a different place every weekend, missing school and traveling and hobnobbing and networking with all these other high school students from all these different places. And then when you got to the national level, man, that's a different ball game. And I was there. I was right in it. I was playing with all these, California, Texas, New York kids that had been, training for this their whole lives. And I was excelling. And so I think that gave me the confidence to then say, okay, what is the next step with this, which became stand-up, which then became improv, which then became storytelling. And so I think it's all just sort of built up to this.
Yeah, I can see that natural evolution. When you were a child too, because you talked about making up all these stories and kind of obviously this large transition or consistent transition, were you supported, when you were a young child of like, yes, you should go this route? And the reason I ask this is I think there's so many times that we hear where, parents or, maybe our senior, like mentors or somebody around us, especially back in the day, like entertainment, not sure if that's the direction I want to push you in. Maybe you should be a doctor, a nurse, an accountant. So did you find that?
No, I was absolutely supported by everyone. Like, it was so obvious that this is what I was supposed to do. I think that everybody just jumped on board. It didn't hurt that I was terrible at math and science. You know what I mean? Like, I was a reader. I would read anything. I could write very well. I was very, I spoke very well. I was very articulate. I had a great vocabulary, but I didn't care about math or science. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there was in my head, there was a calculator for a reason. And, scientific people and my dad was a heart surgeon. So I think that also kind of just steered me off of it. If I had a scientific question, I would just ask him. But I think that scientific people see the world and wonder why it is that way. And I'm perfectly happy with the answer, magic. That's why it's that way. Jesus made it. And I don't care. I don't, why do things do things the way things work? That never interested me. I did recently kind of get into auto mechanics, which I guess is kind of as scientific as I'm going to get. But you spend so much time traveling. You're like, what if this car breaks down? What if something goes wrong while I'm alone on a road? So I wanted to have some understanding of how an engine and a car, went and worked. But again, I'm not good at it. And if there's not a YouTube video, I really don't. I'm not interested.
Oh, totally makes sense. Yeah, I get that. It's magic. Or it's. I love that you said the calculator because now my brain does work with functional science sort of things, but I'm like, but why would I do that? That's why we invented the calculator. I'm not dumb.
Exactly. Look, that is what really makes me upset whenever anyone tells me, well, no, but you're supposed to do this, or no, you're supposed to do that. Then why did we come up with this other thing that makes it so much easier?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's what
It's
we do. It's natural. It's actually human behavior to do that.
I agree. I keep applying it to this election too. People be like, that's not going to happen because it's never happened. Really? None of this has ever happened. We put these loopholes in place so that it could happen. Maybe now is when it's supposed to happen.
This is how things work.
I know. So I keep I keep telling everybody it's not over. Calm it down. There's another act to this. There's another twist. This is such a Shonda Rhimes
Totally.
time of our lives.
It very much feels like How to Get Away with Murder right now for
Oh
me.
have you watched the latest one? Did you watch it?
Oh, no, and I haven't.
You don't know who's dead?
No, don't tell me.
Oh my Lord.
Because here's the thing. So I didn't watch it originally, and I binge watched the first season. Wait, was it first season? How many seasons are there now? 2, 3?
We're on 3.
3. Okay, so I binge watched the first 2 seasons, and of course I've always liked, some of the different actors in there, but I binge watched it and I was like, holy crow, like every other week, right? And so here's the thing. I really want to watch it. I'm purposely not watching it so I can binge watch it all because I don't think I could take week by week.
Season 3 at all?
No, I've actually held it on the DVR.
You are going to have a conniption fit. Like, I only had to watch it because this morning I keep the TV on, like Good Morning America or Today or whatever, morning news show is on, just so I have something to kind of listen to while I'm taking care of the dog and doing stuff around the house in the mornings and stuff. With the Santa Ana winds, I'm constantly having to sweep.
Yeah.
So while I'm doing all that stuff, I keep news on. And this morning they said, oh, we're about to have the spoiler. The person who's dead is going to be on the show. And I literally, you've never seen a fat woman move so fast. I jumped on the bed where the remote control was and turned the TV off immediately. I was like, no, if that gets spoiled for me, I will cry. And then I literally immediately went to Hulu and started watching.
I understand, especially with that show. It's crazy.
And now I'm so upset. I wish you had watched it so I could talk to you about it and be like, can you believe it?
Maybe it'll convince me to watch over the weekend, and then I'll reach back out and be like, okay, now I get it.
Now you'll know.
Well, let me go back for a second too. You mentioned something about also the lifestyle of this, the tour lifestyle, how it was just easy to roll with it. That I wanted to ask a little bit about that too, because it's not just the touring piece, but like I mentioned earlier, it seems like maybe from the sidelines, from us perspective, like you're a little bit on fire. You're in so many different spaces. You have been touring. I know you're about to go on another tour. You're doing so many things. Does it feel like that to you, the way that we see it?
It does. I think what the difference is not that I'm doing anymore, because I've always, worked consistently and stayed on the road consistently and such. But I think the difference now is, instead of performing in a 45-seat theater where, 42 seats are full, I'm now performing in 3,000 space venues and all the seats are full. And it's amazing. It's really nice that the crowds have grown, that I'm getting to play bigger cities. A lot of my touring early on was in small towns, which are great. That is where I am from. That is my bread and butter. I get life in a small town. And I'm certainly happy to be able to bring myself to these small towns, because I know they don't get a lot of, nationally touring acts. And so it's always been important for me to stay in those small town markets. But, in a small town market, sometimes you're playing, Austin on the same weekend as the rodeo, and you didn't think about that. And so there's, your shows are half full because the rodeo's in town.
Yeah.
Or you're in Jacksonville and, they're having some big boat show and the weather's perfect, and there's just not going to be people at your comedy show, no matter what you do. And so I feel like what's been great about now, and what's really shown me that things are kind of moving along at a really nice pace, is that I'm playing in bigger places, in bigger cities. And even when I'm playing in the smaller places, they're full. it's really, people are really making an effort to get there. They've heard something, they've heard the buzz, they've seen a clip, they saw me on TV, whatever it is. I'm getting on more podcasts and radio shows and TV shows and things, even when I get to the place, to promote things. So it's just been nice that way to see that all that, big work that I put in the beginning, where it was, just drive, get out of the car, do a show, get back in the car, drive, where is so much of that, all of that, built me to who I am today. Like, I liken it to, all those laps Michael Phelps, swam in the pool where nobody was cheering and you just have to get down what you're doing. And so I feel like the beginning of it was that, and now I'm getting to kind of reap the benefits of having laid all that groundwork for myself.
I love that you just shared that too, especially the Michael Phelps thing. I've never heard anybody reference those laps, and I'm like, oh yeah, all that practice he did forever. Yeah, right. This is the nitty gritty that nobody knows about.
Yeah, so many nights I was doing this in a bar for 15 people who didn't care, but I got them. I got their attention. I won them over. I made sure they were laughing and having a good time. And having that skill and being able to do that has completely served me in everything that I'm doing now. So
you mentioned something that made me think a little bit more too about just, so I have friends in the entertainment industry, and they've been going for a while, and there's been ups and downs and challenges and this kind of stuff. But so everybody I know really is either an actor or a musician, but there's nobody I really know that's close that does stand up and improv and that kind of stuff. But what I hear of it is that is not for the faint of heart, that it's a little different than because like you said, if they like it and if they don't right away. And when you're doing dramatic or if you're acting and you're doing, TV or movie, you don't always have that response. And it's also, but you're kind of in a protected bubble. I'm curious, has there been a lot of challenges or maybe how tough is it really being a comedian, doing that work day after day and laying the groundwork?
Well, for me, it was not that difficult because it's what I love to do. And I can't imagine doing anything else. And because I was kind of, living out of my car and traveling around with other comedians and such, a lot of what I did on stage was just me talking about literally what we'd been through since the last town. So, you guys aren't going to believe what it took us to get here. Here it is, And so I think that's where a lot of the storytelling and the improvising and the embellishing and things really started there, because it had to be funny and, I couldn't come across angry, even though the anger is what made the story so funny. Was that I kept, I was such a, adult, that kind of stuff, constantly getting myself into messes and trouble and spilling things and breaking things and just all the time. And so it was easy to develop material that way and to feel like I was in charge. And so it was always, this is really all I could do ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes a lot of sense though. Use the power that you have. If that's what you love, I think you have a very clearly. I don't know you all that well, so it feels like you have this interesting lens that you can look at life, and that's what helps you translate it into this amazing story that's funny and interesting as well. So it's using that power of that lens that you have.
Yes, and that's also what keeps me from feeling like I'm doing something anyone else is doing. I feel like when I first started doing stand-up, it was a lot of fat jokes and skinny girl jokes and jokes about food, but it was jokes. And now that I've kind of morphed into this feels so much more organic and so much more original. Not that I was doing other people's jokes, but you've heard a million fat jokes. You've heard a million skinny girl jokes. You know what I mean? But yeah. You've never heard the story of how I got from Pocatello, Idaho to Billings, Montana, and I'm going to tell it to you. So I think it also really got me on a path where I knew that what I was doing was mine and my own. And so I didn't have to worry about if it was hard or anything, because it had to be done. I had to keep, developing the material this way. Otherwise, I was going to get compared to other people.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love the originality.
Yeah, someone told me once I was a white Monique, and I don't think anything's ever upset me so much. And not because I adore Monique. I think she's an amazing talent, but I didn't want to be compared to someone else. I didn't want what I was saying to be like what someone else was saying. And even though obviously what we were saying was very different, we have very different life experiences. I get what they meant. The gist of it, the sort of vibe of it was similar. And so I'm very glad that I quickly found, that I could just talk about what was really going on and make it my own and give myself that gift of not worrying if I was going to get compared to somebody else.
I'd even say that's, even though you didn't say it this way, but I think even that is amazing advice to anybody. It's make it your own, whatever you're doing, because guess Absolutely. What? There's a ton of comedians, there's a ton of actors, there's a ton of doctors in the world, but make it your own.
Right. Nobody else can do me.
Yep.
Even if somebody else has, another person does a story about that. Well, it's not my story. It's not this. And I guarantee you, they're not doing it the way I do it.
That's right. As I read, you drove around in a little Fiat at one point, and I'm sure those are part of your stories. I read that and I was reading all the details. I was like, oh, I don't know anybody else has done this. So yes. I get it.
Yes, I was with another fat comedian, and they put us in a Fiat. And we did not fiat into it. We didn't fiat. It was like literally one of us had to turn to the side so the other one could buckle their seatbelt.
Sheesh.
Like we couldn't both buckle our seatbelts at the same time. It was so small. And so, yeah, and that puts you in a certain mood. And, it's great visualization. They're obviously seeing me with that comedian when I'm telling the story. And I'm saying, me and this girl, who's also huge, we're in this little tiny car, so they're getting it. I think that audiences really love that they think it happened. I think that there's some, like, I'm obviously talking about places in their town and I've only been there a day, so they know I'm being funny right then.
Yep.
This isn't like a bunch of jokes I wrote a year ago that I'm still telling now. And so I think that there's something about that they totally appreciate. And even when I do shorter sets in Los Angeles, I'll just tell one story. Like I don't have a 10-minute set of jokes. I have a story that's 10 minutes. So it's 10 minutes, but it's all about the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And even though, you try to hit a lot of little jokes inside of it, it's still like one story. And so I had a lady come up to me the other day and she was like, I just thought that was amazing the way you talked about one thing the whole time. I'm glad you like it, because I keep getting told I have to, you can't do that. It has to be but they want you to hit as many things as you can. And I'm like, look, that's just not what I do. What I do is tell stories. And I could tell the beginning of like 2 or 3 different stories if that sounds like, but I would rather kind of come to the fruition of one thing. And so, I feel like one of these days, one of these late night guys is going to get me and then it's on.
Well, it's about making your mark, being original. That takes me to a question I've been wanting to ask a little bit too. I hinted at this earlier, and I think this makes sense. Kind of what you're talking about, because like you've come into your own, this is what your storytelling is like. So I mentioned earlier too, like you've been on TV and you've done some of these other things as well. It's like TV, movies. I even read somewhere, maybe there's rumors of a podcast. So I guess my question for you is like, where do you want to play? Like, is it comedian first and I'm trying to dabble, or is it just kind of like I'm an entertainer or performer and I want to dabble everywhere? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think first, I consider myself a comedian, a storyteller comedian. So, not your typical kind of set up punch comedian, but definitely my joy is getting to do that hour of storytelling up there by myself. But I went to an acting conservatory in Chicago, the theater school, at DePaul. And so I was trained to be an actor. And so that also comes naturally to me. And so when I have those kind of auditions and things like that, certainly I'm able to make things, funnier or do, little silly things in the moment, maybe that aren't written on the page, because I have the sensibilities of a comedian. Mm-hmm. Because, I've written, for television and for movies and things like that. And so you have that sensibility of, oh, if I do this, this will get me booked because nobody else is going to think to do this. And this is really funny. And it's not necessarily written into what they have going on. And I think that's the key to booking things like that, is to, put something that's not on the page into the audition. And I love doing that. I love these little fun character roles that I keep getting to play on TV. I've written a couple of pilot scripts that I'm hoping to get into development myself, so that I can work on the writing side of things. But I definitely, there's so many parts of this business that fascinate me and that I want to be part of. I sing as well, and so I also have some rock star dreams that I'd like to fulfill, maybe even if it's doing, comedy kind of songs. I have a couple of songs on iTunes that are silly and fun.
I love that. I didn't realize it about you, Jen. That's now, why not?
And I feel like actually now I had the epiphany the other day that maybe I want to do something for kids that's musical, because when I was a little girl, I had a record called Free to Be You and Me, which was Marlo Thomas and a bunch of famous people got together and made a record that was basically made to tell little girls it was okay to be little girls. Like, it's basically a feminist album that's like, anything boys can do, girls can do too. Like, that was the point of the record. And it was sketches and songs and monologues and such about that subject. And, but how you can't judge books by their cover, and how you have to, girls can run just as fast as boys, and mommies can be lawyers and doctors, and daddies can be chefs and janitors and whatever, that there's, that gender roles can sort of be questioned. And I mean, this album was made in probably 73, 74. Like, this is an old record. And I'm sure you can still download it on iTunes. It's fantastic and something every child should listen to. But I feel like there's an updated version of that could be made that's more about the diversity of people instead of so focused. I mean, obviously, we have to address the girls are just as good as boys as well. Mm-hmm. But also, that we can accept a diversity of culture and different kinds of people and different kinds of children, and children with, physical disabilities or mental disabilities or things, all different ethnicities, more inclusive for children, but using music and sketch comedy and funny poems and silly limericks and things to kind of get them into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And actually, the name of that sounds familiar. I feel like there was some TV special or Sesame Street thing that followed along or something. Because I didn't have the record, but it seems familiar to me.
It's so good.
I feel like I think I'm gonna go get it because I'm like, nah, I'm interested.
The music is so good. Like, seriously, there's some stuff on there that's just. There's a Mel Brooks sketch.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
He and Marlo Thomas were their babies, and they're trying to figure out which one's the boy and which one's the girl.
Oh gosh, I feel like that's the stuff. It makes me sad that, like, so many generations now probably don't even know who Marlo Thomas is. And I'm like, that's sad. We got to bring it back.
I agree. And I'm sure that she would get involved with it. I'm sure that we can make this.
Oh, but I'm writing myself a note.
There was I don't remember the name of it. It's probably still on. But it was that cartoon with Broby and the DJ guy. It was like a little kids. I don't remember the name of it, but it was a little kids show, and they sang songs about being a little kid, and they had a song called "Don't bite your friends. Don't bite your friends. And I thought, that's genius, first of all. That's hilarious. But it was so honest. Like, and it was a little rap about not biting your friends. And it just really inspired me to make something that you are going to teach your kids the things we need to teach them in this world that is so changing and so diverse, but also something that like you can listen to 100 times and not want to hurt yourself or your child. Because I think we forget that parents have to listen to all of the things that the child is listening to. And so, you know, I think if you can make content that is both palpable to adults and children, then, you know, you've really done something.
So 2 things with that song. I think we really need to play that for adults. Absolutely. Because there's a context there that's happening right now. It's about respect. And the other thing is, I don't want to go too much down this tangent, but I just think you mentioned it with this children's music, and everybody, it was about a year ago I discovered him, and everybody made fun of me for it because I bought all these songs. So there's a gentleman named Perry Grip, and he does all of these children's songs, and it could be about the silliest thing. And some of it's very silly. It's like, "This is the best burrito I've ever had" is literally the name of one song. Or, you know, like he sings about broccoli or space unicorns, whatever. But there's something to it because also he's done it kind of like adult music where sometimes it's a rock or it's a rap or whatever. So I just share that, like, go check him out. I think he's LA based. He's hilarious. So great. Clever stuff. So let me ask this question, about this, because you know, you can dabble in these different spaces. The question I'm thinking about is like, what does success look like for you? And I don't mean that in a financial way, or, you know, and maybe stardom. Maybe that's where you're at. You're like looking to hit a certain point. But what I usually like to ask or wanted to know is like, what does success really look like for the whole person? Like, what are you aiming for? And that you'll know that you've accomplished what you're set out for.
Well, I just want to be constantly working on projects that mean something to me, that are somehow bringing, you know, laughter to the masses. I mean, I want to spread this worldwide. I want to be performing all over the world. I think that would be a nice definition of success for me. You know, I would love to also have some sort of, you know, as I look to getting more and more successful, I certainly do enjoy working with up and coming comedians, new comedians, kids, teenagers. I'm literally coaching a college student now who's taking a stand-up comedy class. And I love doing that. I love helping other people kind of find their way, excuse me, within this medium, and what their place is and what they have to say, and how what they say is going to be different because it's them saying it. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm not going to teach you how to write a joke or anything. I'm going to teach you how to make your mess your message. You know, like whatever you're about, how do we take that and then make it funny for the world? And so I love doing that. I think that would be part of my picture of success. I'd love to have a wife, make some babies, maybe have a farm with a ton of animals. Some lovely country lesbian life would be like up in Bozeman, Montana or somewhere, just, you know, happy and stoned on a farm with a bunch of little mini animals would make me happy.
I have a real visual right now.
But I do love being able to travel so much and to perform in so many different places for so many different people, for so many different kinds of people. I mean, during election week, I was in Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm sure you can empathize with what it was like to be in Birmingham, Alabama during election week. And I called my manager and I was like, listen, I can't do this. This is really hard. This is really, I don't think I want to come back here for a while. And he goes, I get it. What's going on? Are you just bombing? I'm like, no, they love me. I'm getting standing ovations and they're buying every single thing I have. I hate that they like me so much. And it was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because I'm making fun of them and they don't see it. They really think I'm just being funny, like I agree with them. They don't understand satire. And so when I'm saying these things, talking like them, they think I'm being funny, and they love me for it. And I'm like, oh God, I just want to go put my head in a closet and turn off a light and wake up in December. So, I feel like success for me would look like definitely being able to say and do what I want for the people I want to say and do it for. Not that I will never go back to Birmingham, Alabama. I'm sure that I will as soon as they call to book me, because I'm a laugh whore. But Mama's got to make her money. But it's hard. I mean, some days it's work. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to get on a stage and make people laugh. I'm not in that place to do it. And I think that what I have to, remind myself of, and this is probably really what the success will be, is that I get to do this, and that the joy I have in life comes when I'm on that stage. Like, there are certainly other parts of my life that are joyful, but when I'm on that stage, like, everything else falls away. And that is the focus, and that is the zen, that is the little bubble I have put myself into, and the wave that I have to ride. And so I think that what I will enjoy most is when I get to do that on a consistent basis and not have to worry about if I'm upsetting anybody or if anybody's, oh God, will the tickets sell? Oh God, will I buy CDs afterwards? Oh no, will they join my email list or like me on Facebook, or whatever is going through my head when I'm thinking, oh, don't say anything that's going to make these people turn on you and wait for you in the parking lot, and so I think a picture of success for me would look like also, having that freedom, having that, and maybe that comes with money and not having to worry about money. But I also don't want to be pompous about it. It's not like I want to go blazing with my middle fingers up and, say every terrible thing I've wanted to say. It's not that. It's that you feel like there's, when you're on stage, well, when I'm on stage, I can only speak for myself, but when I'm on stage, there's a level of effort that goes into what I'm doing. And if I feel like you're not going to get it, I don't make the effort.
I get that.
And I know that sounds terrible. Even as I'm saying it, I'm like, God, you're such a prick. But it's true. Whether it makes me a prick or not, it's the honest assessment of what is happening when I'm up there. And so I want to feel more like it is worth it. And I think that will come with, just the status conferral, the approval, the crowds being there, things like that. When those things are all lined up, there's times I have said some terribly liberal things in some terribly conservative places, and they let me because they like me. And so I feel like I will feel successful when I can know that I will be liked enough to say what I want no matter where I go.
I think all of that makes sense. And even that effort piece, that resonated for me because it doesn't sound as bad, because you want to be appreciated for the effort and the, what you're bringing to the table. So if you feel like, they're not even going to like it, why am I doing it?
Yeah. Or they're going to get it because it's a little more, on the ethereal side, or they've got to really listen and the checks are dropping. And I'm like, oh God, let me just find some redneck to rail on while everybody's trying to figure out who owes $8 for nachos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so much else is going on in the room, but there's definitely that moment where you're like, I don't even want to launch into this part because I know it's not going to pay off.
Yeah. And also, just the one thing I always like, you don't know this about me, like glass is always half full with me. That's kind of how my brain works. I'd like to think of it as a blessing. Maybe it's ignorance. So it's not that I'm blind to things. But when you even talk about like playing in, Birmingham, I just can't help but hope that, yeah, you know what, the liberal things probably don't fly so well there and it can be really tough. But I really kind of hope, I'm like, maybe it might be the connection that you're making there, that there may be a positive connection over time of not just you're funny, but also there's some value and meaning in there. So I don't know if that's really true, and that could be totally wrong, but I'm hoping that happens.
I mean, and that's ultimately why, as excuse me, as silly as I get with being like, I just don't want to go there again. Like, please don't send me there again. I know that I have to go there because, excuse me, otherwise they're not going to see a lesbian. Do you know what I mean? They're
Right.
not gonna know that there is another way of thinking. And I think that's what's been so rewarding about going to small towns, and playing so predominantly in the South, as I have, is that it shows them something different, and it shows me something different. I mean, you can't believe how many rednecks have come up to me after a show and been like, man, I got me a lesbian sister. You remind me I should introduce y'all. I'm like, hey, why would you introduce us? Because, well, you're a lesbian. She's like, I'm the only two lesbians he knows. And so he's going to put us in a room together. And it's funny, but it also, I've had, moms come up to me and be like, my son just came out to me and I didn't know what to do. And I feel like now I'm going to have something to talk to him about. And we're going to be able to, things like that you're like, oh my God, I was up there, telling poop stories and, mishaps at a Walmart and you're like getting life meaning out of it like that. And that's amazing to me. And while we were in Birmingham, actually, I had two openers and both of them were gay as well. Like, this was a gay show in Birmingham. And I'll tell you what, so many of those people came out and were like, that was the funniest show I've ever seen. I couldn't believe, black people, white people, straight people, gay people everywhere, they were loving the show. And I think that's why. I think that if you had said that to them, if you had said, hey man, there's 3 gay comedians at the comedy club tonight in Birmingham, do you want to go? They'd have been like, hell no, and stayed home. But they didn't know what was happening and they were already there and already kind of buckled in. And by the time it got to me, I'm like, I know what y'all are thinking, will straight people be part of this show? No, they won't. You're just going to have to deal. The show's gotten progressively gayer as we've gone, and, I had a guy in Mississippi. He said to me, hey, you a lesbian? I said, yes, sir. He said, so you don't like men at all? I said, no, that's not true. I like my men like I like my coffee. Nowhere near my vagina.
Oh,
and he fell over laughing, and that was it. He like fist pumped me, and we moved on with our lives. It's there. You just have to let people know that it's not even the most interesting thing about me. So
it's true.
I've got way better things to tell you than that. It's just that when I'm talking about the person I'm with, it's probably going to be a girl.
Yeah.
So calm down about it,
It's really just like, I think what you just said, you're going there, you're showing them who you are and they're showing you who they are. And isn't that what we are all about too? It's just this exposure around the world. If we all got out of our own bubbles, no matter what our bubble is. So it's a nice awareness and exposure to learn new things. So I love that.
I agree. I've always said that America doesn't have an education problem. We have a passport problem. Mm. Nobody here goes anywhere.
That's true. Just get out of our own spot.
I mean, this is literally, people don't even see this country. So, it just amazes me. You got to leave your bubble. You got to get out there. You got to talk to other people. You've got to interact and learn and be around people that aren't like you. I mean, otherwise, so much of me, I played a gig the night after the election, and I was at a college, and I was like, oh, I don't even know how this is going to go. I'm so angry. I'm so mad. I don't know what I'm going to say to these children. I have to address it. How can I not address it? How can
Yeah.
I do a show and not say something about it, So I got there, and when I got to the college, the room is full of brown children. I'm like, perfect. Yay. We can commiserate together. I'm talking to the kids. They're from Honduras and El Salvador and the Dominican Republic. And, we're all also devastated. And about 10 minutes into the show, this group of white boys, frat boys, walks in and sits right in the middle. And I said, this is your fault, isn't it? You voted for him, didn't you? And one of those kids was brave enough to say that he voted for Trump. And I was like, can you come up here? I have some questions for you. And I brought him up on stage, and I just grilled him for an hour. And thank God I'm funny when I'm angry, but I'm kind of trying to nail him with some facts. Like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And the kid's like, I mean, that's out of context. Out of context? What context can you tell a woman that you're going to grab her by the pussy? What context is that okay? And the kids are going nuts and everybody's laughing. But I mean, it really did show me like what lengths voters on that side were willing to go to really overlook these, what seemed to everyone else, blatant, tragic character flaws.
Mm-hmm.
But to him, were really like just not the issue. Like, I'm like, what about the grabber by the pussy? That was a long time ago. Yeah, back when he was 60. I gotcha. Let me tell you something, friend. You don't say anything at 60, you don't still believe it's 70. You don't know that because you're only 20. But guess what? So it was, I really did learn things from that kid, even though if you had watched it, you would have thought I was just annihilating him verbally for an hour.
Well, but that's the thing, though. Like you're saying too. Like, you really did learn stuff from him. But obviously you're a comedian, and you have to also make it funny, and everybody's got to enjoy the show.
Yes.
What? Just because it's obviously such an interesting time with like the election, and well, I think this is going to pull stories out forever. Now, there's so much stuff to talk about. But what keeps you energized and inspired as you keep doing, not just like in today's kind of climate, today as in the last week and a half climate, but, just moving forward in your career as you're doing more and going to audiences that maybe, are a little bit tougher, or as you're getting bigger seats? What keeps you energized and inspired to keep going?
Well, I love now that I'm getting in front of so many people that I think would have never seen me. I think lucking into this NPR tour, and I'm about to tape an episode of This American Life as well. And I think that just exposes me as a comedian to a whole different group of people, conceivably a much older group of people, actually. But I love that. I have gotten a great response from them. They've never heard of me, and I come on very strong. And so I think it's an impression, that lasts with them. And what I love about it is that, people that will support a radio station will buy tickets to come see a show. And so it's such a wonderful group of people to tap into, because they'll come see me as part of this show. And then when I say, hey, guess what? I'm going to be here again in February at the Comedy Club. They'll pack the Comedy Club, and I'll get to do, sort of stretch out my legs and do a much longer, storytelling set. And everyone will be into it. Even the people that thought they were coming to see sort of more traditional stand-up, And so I love that these audiences are getting to mix and blend together. I think that keeps me very inspired, that new people are getting to see my stuff every day. I always want more and more exposure on television. I think that keeps me very inspired. I'm such a TV junkie myself that, the schoolgirl glee I get when I'm on TV is still, and that's Christmas for me. That's very inspiring and fun. And also, I still love what I do. As I've gotten older, I'm a little less in love with the 5 a.m. plane ride and the, Best Western Hotel. But I mean, it's still me getting to do what I love to do every night of the week.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I would imagine, even just when you said also like the 5 a.m. flights, just that has to be, the touring must be exhilarating and exhausting at the same time. But the stretching your legs all the time, I can see that as inspiration. I love that because then it creates change and you get to grow and try new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the travel and the sort of odd situations I find myself in doing all of that travel certainly makes for new material and new stories. It's all material. I mean, that's what it ultimately boils down to, is that like at some point last year, I just started saying yes to everything because it all led to such craziness that I'm like, wow, if I had just stayed home tonight, none of this would have happened. I mean, literally last night, I ended up at a SAG Q&A forum for the cast of OJ, The People versus OJ.
Oh, wow.
So I was like in a room with John Travolta, Cuba Gooding Jr., Sarah Paulson, and Courtney B. Vance. And people are asking questions, and I'm like, how did I even end up in here? A friend of mine was like, do you want to go to this Q&A thing? And I was like, no, not really. And she was like, please, we'll go eat sushi afterwards. And so I was like motivated by the food we would eat afterwards. Like didn't even want to be there, and ended up like seeing this insanely amazing Q&A session where I learned so much about my craft and the way people approach their work and the way, things really get done and the way you take something that actually happened and dramatize it. And it was incredibly interesting. And I wouldn't have even been there. I mean, I was 10 feet away from John Travolta. The 6-year-old Jen Kober was losing her fucking mind. Like I was on the inside, just like tap dancing and literally singing "You're the One That I Want." But it's to have been there. I wouldn't have been there if I had been like, if I had, done what I wanted to do and stayed home and smoked pot and watched, the Saints game. And so I'm very glad that I now have the wherewithal to say yes to things and to sort of embrace the adventure, even if it seems like it's going to be awful, because even in its awfulness, there's something good.
Absolutely. I love this say yes to everything. I've heard this now from 2 different guests, even just recently, and it's really turned around. I have not been that way, so I have really tried to be like, anything that comes my way, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to try it all. Why not? It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm doing comedy tonight in a haunted hotel.
Really?
And just got another message asking me if I wanted to do comedy at a mattress store that's having an opening. They're going to pay me an insane amount of money to go do a clean comedy show for a mattress store opening. I'm like, yes, I'm totally there. I get to tell a story where I open at a mattress store.
I was like, that is like writing your scripts and stories for you next. I'm like,
I'm like, the jokes just write themselves. I don't even have to be here.
I think that's so smart. It's, we have to open ourselves up to opportunity. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm very glad that I have done that, because it is definitely in my nature to be like, no, I'm tired. I can order Thai food and sit right here and not move and not have to deal with any people.
Well, but now we know. So when I'm in town and I know you're in town, I'm like, I'm going to meet Jen Kober in person. I'll be like, let's have sushi later. And I know you'll be there, right?
Or Ramen Burgers. That's my other new favorite thing.
I haven't tried that yet.
They take the ramen noodles and they make them into a patty and like sizzle them down like a hash brown.
Yeah.
And that's fun. And then they put a delicious, juicy, like crazy Kobe beef burger on top of it, and then another bun of the ramen noodles. Oh my God, it's so good.
Sounds good. I'm like, oh wait, carbs? I love carbs.
It's so good. God bless the stoner that thought of that.
So like we were talking earlier that, you're doing a lot right now. And earlier we talked about even a new tour coming up, and then we have the Snap Judgement. But maybe tell me, like, what's next for you, especially as we're starting to get into 2017. What's the world going to look like for you?
Well, I'm still holding out hope for this electoral college overturn. I think that's the Shonda Rhimes twist that we're all looking for, which would just bring me renewed hope in humanity. But barring that, I feel like in 2017, I really want to get the scripts that I wrote developed and up into pilot form to see if I can really hang with that. I also have a movie that I just wrote a treatment for that I'm hoping to get some legs underneath it and see what we can make happen on that front. And then just continued touring. I'm playing a lot of colleges. I'm doing a lot of comedy clubs, a lot of theaters with the NPR stuff. So I'm just getting to perform in so many fun different mediums that, I just hope that continues and that people keep coming out and keep digging what I'm doing. And it's always so funny because when you're a storyteller, what people want to do when they meet you is tell you their stories. And so it always makes the sort of meet and greet line really long because somebody wants to share with me, some sort of moment that they had of like, oh, you know what? I ate a whole bunch of cheese one time too, and here's what happened to me. So I always have my ass always clenches during those moments because I'm like, oh, people are waiting and they hate you for telling me a story, but everybody wants to tell you a story, and I get it, because I mean that's what I would want to do if I had met somebody that just told me a bunch of stories, and so. It's fun in that way too, because then I get stories from like, oh my God, a guy came up to me last night and said this, and so I have those things to tell as well. And so it all just begins to feed on itself and kind of even become bigger than I thought it could be. And that's what's been so wonderful about it. And I hope that continues, through 2017.
Absolutely. And I can see that well too. Especially people resonate with your stories, so they want to tell you more stories. It's only a good thing. So fun. Well, listen, I think that I'm probably going to see you soon because I am going to go see that Snap Judgement. And for anybody that's listening, definitely go see the tour. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but it looks amazing.
It is.
And Jen, let me just ask, we always end with this last piece is if people want to follow along, see your tour dates, follow you online, find out more information, what are the best places to find you?
You can find me at the hub of jenkober.com, JenKober. I like to tell people it's like sober with a K. So jenkober.com, there's little buttons on the front page where you can connect with me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and such. My tour dates are there. At the bottom of the homepage, you can see my first Snap Judgement story, which is about Girl Scout cookies. There's also the clip from me on The Middle on ABC is there as well. So it's a fun little portal for you to find all things Jen Kober. And like I said, jenkober.com, so simple, so easy. Be my friend, like me.
Buy a t-shirt. I've seen those.
Exactly. I have little t-shirts.
They're super cute.
Thank you. My friend Amy Edwards drew that little Wonder Woman cartoon of me and my dog, and so I have exploited it on everything. I've used it.
I know, I love it because I think that's a theme, right? You've posted some of this on your Instagram and stuff too, like the Wonder Woman and the backpacks so cute.
I wrote a pilot, and I want Linda Carter to play my mom in the pilot.
Please make that happen.
So I know you don't understand. I'm like. Either my mom has to be Linda Carter or Delta Burke, and so
yes.
I'm very excited that one pilot kind of favors one and the other pilot favors the other. So maybe both will happen, and that would make me excited beyond belief. But I really want to work with her. I went and saw her sing here in California at the Catalina Jazz Club. There on Sunset, and she was phenomenal.
Amazing. Wait, who's that? Linda or Delta?
Linda Carter can sing, honey. It is and of course I'd had a little bit of Prosecco. I was doing a little champagne that night because Catalina Jazz Club has lovely menu and hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, and so after about the third glass of Prosecco, I screamed out, "Do the spin!" That bitch did the spin. She did the spin. I was like, I've never loved a woman more than right now.
That's great. Well, she knows her audience.
Absolutely. And I think she was a little tipsy too. But It was a fantastic show, and I would give my left arm to work with her. So
Oh, that's so good. I could just see that. It would be so much fun. And she's actually she just started to do some more recent TV work here and there too.
she's playing the president on Supergirl.
Mm-hmm. That's what I remember seeing that. Yeah, so why not make it happen?
And she had a little stint a few years ago on Law and Order SVU. She played a very evil, conniving mom. And so I'm very interested to see if we can get her on board and see if she'll do it. I mean, dream come true. Let's put that out into the world for 2017.
Absolutely. We're making dreams right now. I love it. So you make this happen so I can come watch and we're all good.
Absolutely. We will break the news here on your podcast first.
I love that. Okay, I'm holding you to it. Well, Jen, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for, again, being on the show. I think, like I told you earlier, we could just talk forever. It's just so easy and so many good stories.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you at the show in San Francisco.
Thank you for listening to the show this week. What'd you think? Great story? Any new ideas? If you're new to the show, subscribe to receive a new episode each week automatically. And if you love the show and you want to help us out, go tell a friend about it. Then go write us a quick review on iTunes. Both of these favors really help us get the word out. If you want to follow along with me and see behind the scenes fun and more, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @MeChristopher. That's MECHRISTOPHER. To get even more inspiration and updates, follow Accidental Information on Instagram and Facebook at Accidental Information, and on Twitter at Accidental Info. We also post original articles about following your passions and getting creative, and more information about each episode at accidentalinformation.com. Thanks for joining me this week. Now let's keep chatting online, and then I will talk to you again next week.